What if I told you that some of the greatest miracles Jesus ever performed were never seen by the crowds at all? No cheering people, no amazed witnesses, no one running through the streets to tell the news. Just a quiet room, a closed door, a few trusted friends, and a miracle so powerful it could change everything. Yet Jesus asked everyone to keep it secret. Why would he do that? Why would someone with the power to heal, to calm storms, to bring peace where there was pain, choose to hide it? Stay with me, because by the end of the story, you'll understand something about Jesus that most people never stop to think about. And if stories like this move you, make sure you're subscribed, because we're about to go on a journey through 7 moments in the life of Jesus that almost no one talked about. Moments hidden from the crowd. Moments meant only for a few. Let's begin. Our story starts in a small fishing town called Capernaum, beside a lake that shimmered under the evening sun. This was Peter's town, his home, and it's where our first secret miracle took place. Peter had just left everything behind to follow Jesus. His nets, his boat, his whole way of life. It wasn't an easy choice, but something about this teacher from Nazareth pulled at his heart in a way nothing else ever had. That evening, Jesus and his followers walked into Peter's house, tired from a long day of teaching. But the moment they stepped through the door, they felt the weight of worry in the air. Peter's mother-in-law was lying on a mat, burning with fever. Her body trembled. Her breathing was heavy. The family stood around her, helpless, wiping her forehead with cool cloths, praying the fever would break. Peter's eyes met Jesus' eyes. No words needed to be spoken, just a silent plea. Jesus walked closer. He didn't call for a crowd. He didn't raise his voice. He simply knelt beside her. And then he reached out his hand. He touched her. The room went still. For a moment, nothing happened. The fire in her skin, the shallow breath. Everyone waited. Then something shifted. Her breathing slowed. Her body relaxed. The color returned to her face. And just like that, the fever was gone. She sat up on her own. No weakness, no dizziness, nothing that usually follows a sickness like that. She got up, and in an act that speaks louder than any words, she began to serve them a meal. Strength completely restored, as if the sickness had never touched her at all. No crowd saw this healing. No one outside that home even knew it happened until much later. It was quiet, personal, a miracle wrapped in an ordinary evening, tucked inside 4 walls where only love and worry had been sitting moments before. But this was only the beginning. Word about Jesus was spreading, even without him seeking attention. People whispered about the strange teacher who spoke with power, who healed the sick, who seemed to carry something the world hadn't seen before. And one man, desperate and afraid, was about to experience a miracle that would shake him to his very core. His name was Jairus. He led the synagogue in that town, a respected man, someone people looked up to, but titles meant nothing to him now, because his little girl, his only daughter, was fading. She had been sick for days, getting weaker, paler, and now she wasn't responding at all. Jairus ran through the streets, pushing past people, his heart pounding louder than his footsteps. When he found Jesus, he fell to his knees right there in the dirt. "My daughter," he said, his voice breaking. "She's almost gone. Please, come and place your hands on her. I know she'll be made well." Jesus didn't hesitate. He turned and walked with Jairus, the crowd pressing in around them, curious, eager, watching every step. But before they could reach the house, a messenger came running, out of breath, his face pale. "Don't trouble the teacher anymore," he said quietly to Jairus. "She's gone." The words hit like a blow. Jairus staggered. His whole world seemed to crumble in that single sentence. But Jesus turned to him and said something that must have felt almost impossible to believe in that moment. "Don't be afraid. Just believe." They continued walking, and this is where the miracle becomes secret. When they arrived at the house, it was full of noise. people weeping, mourning loudly, the way it was done in those days. Jesus stepped inside and said something that confused everyone. "Why all this noise? The child is only sleeping." They laughed at him, actually laughed, because they had seen her. They knew what they saw. But Jesus didn't argue. He didn't try to convince the crowd. Instead, he did something remarkable. He sent almost everyone outside. Only Peter, James, and John were allowed to stay, along with the girl's mother and father. 5 witnesses. That's all. The house grew quiet. Jesus walked into the small room where the girl lay still. He knelt beside her, the same way he had knelt beside Peter's mother-in-law. He took her hand gently. "Little girl," he said softly, "get up." For a moment, nothing. Then her chest rose. Her eyes opened, and she sat up, looking around at her parents like she had simply woken from a nap. The room filled with a kind of silence that only happens when something impossible has just happened in front of you. Her mother covered her mouth. Her father dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. Jesus, calm as ever, gave them a simple instruction. Get her something to eat. As if to remind everyone, life was continuing now, ordinary and beautiful. Then he told them clearly, "Don't tell anyone what happened here." Can you imagine? The biggest miracle of that family's life. And Jesus asked them to keep it quiet. Why would he do that? Maybe because Jesus wasn't performing miracles to build a following. He wasn't chasing fame or applause. He cared about the people in front of him, their pain, their fear, their hope, not the crowd's reaction. This pattern, this quiet, private compassion would appear again and again in the story of Jesus. And the next miracle would happen in a place even the disciples never expected. It was nighttime, and the wind on the lake had turned rough. The disciples were out on the water in a small boat, rowing hard against the waves. Jesus had stayed behind on the shore to pray, alone in the quiet hours after a long day. The water grew wild. The boat rocked violently. Some of these men were experienced fishermen. They knew storms, but this one felt different, exhausting, endless. Then, somewhere between the crashing waves and the dark sky, one of them looked out and froze. There was a figure walking toward them. On the water, fear ran through the boat like fire. Someone whispered it might be a ghost. Their hands trembled on the oars, hearts pounding, eyes wide with disbelief. Then a familiar voice cut through the wind. "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." It was Jesus. Peter, always the bold one, called out, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," Jesus said, and Peter did something no one expects to actually work. He stepped out of the boat, and for a few incredible seconds, he was walking too, on the water, just like Jesus. But then he noticed the wind, the waves, the impossibility of what he was doing, and fear crept in. He began to sink. "Lord, save me," he cried out. Jesus reached out immediately and caught him. No hesitation, no delay. "You have so little faith," Jesus said gently. "Why did you doubt?" They climbed back into the boat together. And the moment they did, the wind stopped. The waves calmed. The night became still, as if the storm had simply been waiting for permission to end. The men in that boat stared at Jesus in stunned silence. No crowd saw this. No one on the shore witnessed it. Only a handful of tired, frightened men in the middle of a dark lake got to see Jesus do something that defied everything they understood about the world. It was a miracle meant only for them, a private moment of wonder in the middle of their fear. But as incredible as that night was, our next story shows a different side of Jesus. Not power over nature this time, but tenderness toward a person the world had learned to ignore. There was a man who lived on the edge of society. He couldn't hear. He couldn't speak clearly. For his whole life, people had likely overlooked him, spoken about him instead of to him, treated him as someone broken rather than someone worthy of dignity. Some people brought him to Jesus, begging for help. But here's where it gets interesting. Jesus didn't heal him in front of everyone. He didn't make a public display of it. Instead, Jesus gently took the man aside, away from the crowd. Just the two of them, in a quiet space where no one else could see. Can you imagine what that must have felt like for this man? For years, people had stared at him, whispered about him, treated his condition like something to gawk at. And now, someone was pulling him aside, not to expose him, but to protect him, to give him privacy in his most vulnerable moment. Jesus placed his fingers gently in the man's ears. Then he touched the man's tongue. He looked up toward the sky and let out a deep sigh, the kind of sigh that carries emotion too big for words. Then he said one simple word, "Be opened." Immediately, the man's ears opened. His tongue was freed, and he began to speak, clearly, for the first time in who knows how long. Tears must have filled his eyes as sounds rushed into his world for the very first time. The wind, the birds, his own voice, finally working the way it should. Jesus told the small group present not to tell anyone. But you can imagine how hard that must have been to keep quiet. This miracle wasn't about proving power. It was about restoring dignity to someone who had been overlooked his whole life. And Jesus did it privately, so the healing itself, not the spectacle, could be the center of that moment. But this wasn't the only time Jesus led someone away from the crowd for a personal, quiet healing. In another town, people brought a blind man to Jesus, begging him to touch him and heal his eyes. And once again, Jesus did something unexpected. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village, away from everyone, just the two of them, walking slowly through the quiet streets until the noise of the town faded behind them. When they were alone, Jesus spit on the man's eyes and placed his hands on him. "Do you see anything?" Jesus asked. The man looked around, blinking. "I see people," he said slowly, "but they look like trees walking." His sight was returning, but not fully. Not yet. Jesus placed his hands on
Receive
the
your
man's eyes
sight.
again.
I
And
can
this time, when
see.
the man looked up,
Your faith has healed
everything
you.
was clear.
Thank you.
Sharp, bright, whole. He could see faces, colors, the shape of the world around him, probably for the first time in years, or maybe ever. Jesus sent him home, but told him gently not to go back into the village to tell people what happened. Once again, a miracle wrapped in privacy, a healing meant for one person's heart, not for public applause. Why did Jesus do this so often? Why hide these moments of incredible power? Maybe because true compassion doesn't need an audience. Maybe Jesus wanted these people to experience their miracle without becoming a spectacle, without being turned into a story for others to gossip about. He gave them back their lives quietly, so they could live those lives without the weight of fame or curiosity following them forever. But our next story is different. This time, the secret wasn't for the person being helped. It was for the ones who witnessed something almost too great to comprehend. Jesus led 3 of his closest friends, Peter, James, and John, up a high mountain. Just the 4 of them. No explanation given. No hint of what was coming. As they reached a quiet place near the top, something began to happen to Jesus right before their eyes. His face began to shine, brighter than sunlight. His clothing turned dazzling white, whiter than anything on earth could ever be washed to become. The 3 men stood frozen, stunned, unable to speak. And then 2 figures appeared beside Jesus, men who had lived long, long before this moment in history. They stood there, speaking with Jesus, as if stepping out of time itself. Peter, overwhelmed and probably not even thinking clearly, blurted out something about building shelters right there on the mountain, as if trying to hold on to the moment forever. But before he could finish speaking, a bright cloud settled over them. And from the cloud, a voice spoke. "This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him." The 3 men fell to the ground in fear, pressing their faces into the dirt, hearts pounding, breath caught in their chests. Then silence. When they finally looked up, it was just Jesus, standing there, alone, ordinary again, as if the sky itself hadn't just opened above them moments earlier. As they walked back down the mountain, Jesus gave them a clear instruction. Don't tell anyone what you saw. Not yet. Can you imagine carrying a secret like that? Watching something so powerful, so far beyond human understanding, and having to hold it quietly inside? This wasn't a miracle of healing. It was a miracle of revealing, a glimpse of something greater, shown only to 3 trusted friends, hidden from the world until the time was right. And now, we come to our final secret miracle, one that happened in the middle of fear, confusion, and heartbreak. It was night. Jesus had been praying in a garden, his heart heavy with the weight of what was coming. His closest friends were nearby, though exhaustion had pulled them into sleep more than once. Then, torches appeared in the darkness. A group of armed men approached, led by someone Jesus knew well, someone who had once called him friend. Tension filled the air. Fear, confusion, everything happening too fast for anyone to fully process. One of Jesus' followers, trying to protect him, grabbed a sword and swung it toward one of the men in the group. The blade struck, and the man's ear was badly wounded. Chaos, shouting, fear rising in every direction. But in the middle of all that noise and panic, Jesus did something that must have stunned everyone present. He stopped the fighting. "No more of this," he said firmly. And then, gently, quietly, in the middle of his own arrest, surrounded by people who had come to take him away, Jesus reached out and touched the wounded man's ear and healed him right there, in the dark, in the chaos, with soldiers standing around him, ready to take him into custody. This miracle wasn't performed for followers. It wasn't performed for someone who loved him. It was performed for a stranger, in the middle of the very moment when Jesus' own life was being threatened. No crowd celebrated this healing. No one wrote songs about it that night. It happened quickly, quietly, almost overlooked in the tension of everything else going on. But think about what it reveals. Even in his most difficult, frightening moment, Jesus chose compassion over self-protection. Even facing an arrest that would change everything, he paused to heal someone who moments before had come to take him away. That's the kind of heart these 7 secret miracles reveal to us. A tired mother healed quietly in her own home. A grieving family given back their daughter, with only a few trusted witnesses present. Frightened friends on a stormy lake, shown a glimpse of power meant only for them. A man who couldn't hear or speak, given dignity in private, away from curious eyes. A blind man led gently out of town, so his healing could be personal, not a performance. 3 close friends given a vision of glory on a quiet mountain, told to keep it to themselves until the time was right. And a stranger, healed in the middle of chaos and fear, simply because kindness didn't stop, even when everything else was falling apart. None of these moments needed a crowd. None of them needed applause. They weren't about proving anything to anyone. They were simply love in action, quiet, personal, real. And maybe that's the lesson worth carrying with us today. Not every act of kindness needs to be seen. Not every good thing we do needs recognition or applause. Sometimes the most meaningful moments in life happen quietly, away from the noise, known only to the people whose lives were touched by them. Jesus didn't need a crowd to prove who he was. His compassion showed up in small rooms, quiet mountains, stormy lakes, and even in the middle of his own arrest. So maybe the question worth asking ourselves is this: are we willing to do good, even when no one is watching? If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about kindness, compassion, or quiet moments of grace, take a second to like this video and subscribe for more stories like this one. There are so many more moments in this journey worth exploring together. Thank you for watching. And until next time, may you carry a little more quiet kindness into your own world.